Later, 2 weeks later, on a Thursday morning, Greg Taylor in England released the public information after about a year of it being kept, only the people in England and so on knowing about it, that Bishop Williamson, as a homosexual pedophile living in his house named Father Abraham, who has been put into the public circuit saying Mass. The people said, when Father Abraham first said Mass for Resistance a year and a half ago, he said his first Mass, and he said, I'm not part of the resistance. I don't agree with the resistance. I don't agree with all your political baloney. I'm just saying Mass because Bishop Williamson told me to. I'm not part of your problem. So the people of Scotland said, okay, don't come back. We want a resistance priest. But eventually, because of Bishop Williamson, they continued to come. Then the word got out that he was nailed 2 times for pedophilia, once in the Philippines, second in France. And that bishop, then that was the reason why 15 years ago, about 10 to 15 years ago, he was removed from the Society of St. Pius X officially by Bishop Fillet. Now, Bishop Fillet has done many wrong things. He's done many wicked things. But this was not one of them. When Bishop Fillet told Father Abraham, who was thrown in prison for only 1 day, and then he was released because of the fact that the family in France refused to press charges, and Bishop Fillet said, all right, you can still wear a cassock, you can still be a priest, but you cannot say Mass publicly, nor even with a server privately, but you can still say Mass. So he would say Mass at, say, 2 in the afternoon or 5 in the morning or whatever, without a server. And your job is to answer phones and be a butler, basically, for the rest of your life. You're no longer a member of the Society of St. Pius X, but you can live in our priories and answer the phones. And so he lived in London, and he stayed there. That's where I met him. He was there for many years, and he was basically a butler for the rest of his life, which was a very equitable punishment. He had been thrown in the streets, but he's left, and he accepted that punishment. Fine. A year and a half ago, Bishop Williamson decided to put him back in the circuit. Of course, you know, the effeminate behavior and unusual, and the what do you call it? And of course, somebody leaked the information. Of course, they call Menzingen, and Father Abraham said, "If you hear anything about me to the people in Ireland, talk to me about it, and I'll let you know." Okay. Well, sure enough, they heard he was caught for the problem of pedophilia. So, the man in charge, one of the chapels in Ireland, not a chapel that I go to, but a chapel that Father Buffet goes to, said, "Do you is it true that you have a problem with pedophilia?" "Yes, it is," said Father Abraham. "Do you still have a problem?" He says, "Yeah, I still do." Okay, don't come back here. Bishop Williamson wrote to them and said, it was a mistake of 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that bygones be bygones, everybody makes mistakes, let it go. But you see, when it comes to homosexual pedophilia, this particular problem is not like having a girlfriend. If a priest has a girlfriend, that's bad. But it's something which can happen. And when is it a problem? Whenever you see the girlfriend. If you don't see the girlfriend, there's no problem. But homosexuality, that is a perversion against nature. And homosexuality is a problem 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. It affects the way you speak. It affects the way you think. It affects your entire being. Even though it's bad for a priest to have a girl problem, this is nothing at all, not even remotely. It's like comparing saying, "I don't like you," with being a serial killer. Right? Now, when you say something negative, that's negative. But when you murder somebody, that's infinitely worse. 2 different sins. And so likewise, you know, that even though the girl problem is a problem, it's nothing like that homosexuality, which is why the church has much more strict rules about it in the olden times and even today. Even today. And what is the reason why people hate the Catholic Church? What's the main reason why people today say they hate the Catholic Church? Because they release pedophile priests on the faithful. And they blame the bishops. So now we got a bishop of the resistance who's sending a priest to say Mass for the faithful, who has the same problem. The exact same problem going on in Nova Sordo, happening with us. This information is released on Wednesday night, or Thursday, 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks after September 13th. Within 12 hours, Bishop Ambrose is the most wicked bishop on the planet. Oh, the Mexican is more wicked than Satan. The seminary is the worst possible seminary in the world in Kentucky. Everything is a complete and total disaster. The whole kingdom of Our Lady of Mount Carmel is collapsing, and every kind of spit imaginable was released within 12 hours of that notice. It's not a coincidence. Now, what's the reason? The reason is to distract from a new theology, which happens to be not new at all. Happens to be the exact same theology as Bishop Fillet. We have it here. Father Zendejas is traveling around right now to our missions. He's going to try to take over St. Mary's, Kansas. Kentucky, I just learned last night, for instance, Father Zendejas told some people in St. Mary's, Kansas. It's our largest parish now. We've got about 120 people there. So he says, you know what? I can have first communions for you with Bishop Williamson next summer. And he told the people in our largest parish last year, which was Danbury, Connecticut, with 85 people, our second largest parish, about the same as at that time, about the largest. We had 3 parishes the same size. He came in last year and took over the parish. Had 85 people in Mass in October. And then Father Zendejas came in and took about 60 of them. About 50 stayed with him, and we had 11 people the next week. They were not in his acceptable group. They don't know where the man. We still don't have the address of his Mass. His Mass is private and secret. Moved in and took over. Now, he's going to be in St. Mary's, Kansas. He's just in there a week ago. He's going to be there next week. And tell people, you know, I've got something to offer you more than Father Fiver, Father Yuko. What are they doing? They're trying to cut us off. Trying to slice us out. Why are they trying to do that? The reason is we have 2 different theologies. The teaching of Father Fiver and Father Yuko, and the priests that support us and work alongside of us, is Archbishop Lefebvre was right. Archbishop Lefebvre had the correct answer to the crisis in the church. Archbishop Lefebvre realized we must fight clearly and boldly and openly modernism. We must profess the social kingdom of our Lord Jesus Christ. And we have to do it in a practical way. And what does that mean? It means missions and seminary structure. Mission, seminary, structure. Those 3 things. Without missions, there's no need for a seminary. If there's no faithful, then you don't need a priest. You don't need a house of 30 priests to sit around and drink beer and talk about theology. But we do need priests to go and take care of the sheep. So there must be missions. From the missions come vocations. And there must be a seminary, and there must be a structure. And that structure, Archbishop Lefebvre was right about that. Also, there must be a clear stance that we are standing for the faith and against modernism. That has to be very clear. Now we have something here which should be interesting for you to read. Well, maybe you shouldn't read it. It's heresy. This is the blue paper. I don't know what it's called, not the purple paper or the green paper or the white paper. I don't know. Maybe it has to do with Our Lady, I don't know. But it's called the blue paper by Father Zendejas. And this is the blue paper of November 17th, 2015. Came out last week. Also last week, at the same time, Bishop Williamson put out his liaison comments about miracles of the new Mass. Did you read the liaison comments? Any of you read that this last week? Well, you saw that? Yeah. You know, this last week, in here as well. He puts a summary of it in the first words, right? You know, the evidence suggests, alas, that there are 2 miracles happening. He really likes his poems, right? And he's a bad influence on Chris because he does the poems of the seminary all the time. This is where he has the point. But God has worked miracles with the NO Mass. That's what the evidence suggests, alas. This is not Bishop Fillet. This is not Cardinal Burke. This is Bishop Williamson, the rector of the seminary that I went to, who was a very great rector, who did magnificent work, and who was in our seminary in Kentucky every day. I teach the same style Bishop Williamson used to teach. There's a little tend to, it just kind of works out that way, and I noticed that some of the mannerisms are the same as some of the mannerisms too. You know, I noticed one time I was preaching retreats in Phoenix, and I was preaching about, after like 3 or 4 years, I realized that one day I was sitting at the table, and I would sit at the table. When I was at the table, I would be talking, and I would take my hands and go like this. And then, You know, I realized I was taking the grab heads at the table, coming back. I said, wait a minute, why am I doing that? Then I realized that's what Bishop Williamson did all the time. So I'm sitting in his classroom, and he used to talk, and you know, I'm doing the same thing. And so Bishop Williamson is in our seminary. His style and his teaching, he was a great teacher, great rector. He did a really magnificent job, 20 years in the Seminary of America. But something's happened. And he's saying here that the new Mass is miracles, and he's backing it up. And this is more powerful, not only to the faithful, but also to priests. Because, you know, we all want to be spiritual and supernatural. This is more powerful than a dogmatic argument. Strictly speaking, it's not, but to us human beings it is. If he says new Mass equals good because Lumen Gentium this and, you know, and Council of Trent that, you're like, whatever, you're full of baloney, right? But if he says there's a real miraculous host in Buenos Aires that matches the Lanciano host, wow, maybe the new Mass isn't that bad. See how that argument, which is not an argument, is more powerful? By association. Well, if there's a miracle in the new Mass must not be that bad. So he's teaching the new Mass is not that bad. Whereas the bishop that consecrated him, named Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre, he said he was a pastor in Mass. That's bad. And Archbishop Williamson is saying it's not that bad. But did he tell you it's not that bad? No, he just said there's miracles there. What we see in these two letters, miracles from Bishop Williamson, and this thing called the blue paper from Father Zendejas, it's called mind control. Mind control. Here's what Bishop Williamson, Father Zendejas says in his letter. He says that the modern ecclesiastical orientation, not the heresies, not the errors, the modern ecclesiastical orientation started with the spirit of the council. There's no problem with the spirit of the council. The problem is the council is straight from hell. And well, you were counting there, Matthew, how many times somebody was started, orientation, wide. It's like 10, this thing is like 10 different times in this letter. It says words like orientation, tide, special orientation, direction, spirit, movement. When in fact, all they need to say is, New Vatican II equals heresy. Not the spirit of Vatican II. Now the problem to start, here's another statement. In the days of the council, the teaching of novelties, not heresies, not errors, in the days of the council, this is Father Zendejas speaking, supposed priest of the resistance. In the days of the council, the teaching of novelties about humanism, man-centered church, were opposed and then silenced by more or less honest means and men. So you know your history of the council. During Vatican II, modernism was silenced. During Vatican II, humanism was stopped by honest means and honest men, like Paul VI and Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger and Ronner and all these guys straight from hell who were honest means and honest men. And these honest means and honest men, that's fine. That's okay. So the honest means and honest men silenced against a bunch of baloney. That may have happened in a parallel universe on the other side of the sun, but it never happened on this one, right? And this is not Bishop Fillet speaking. This is Father Zendejas speaking. Why is it that a priest of the resistance is teaching the same thing that Bishop Fillet and Father Pfluger is teaching? Why is it that the bishop is teaching the same thing that Father Pfluger and Bishop Fillet are teaching? We have a very serious problem here. And why is it so important? There's 100 of us priests of the resistance, or close to 100 now. Why is it so important to destroy what we're doing in Kentucky? Why is it so important to attack us? Why not everybody? We're all supposed to be standing for the same truth. Why not attack everybody? Divided is only one part of it. What we're seeing is, it's not about dividing us. The division is already there. and that there are priests in the resistance who are not part of the resistance. And they never were.
Manchurian candidates or something?
Manchurian candidates who are here to give an impression that they're with us, but they're not. You ever see the movie Dr. Zhivago? And remember, what's his name? Obi-Wan Kenobi, what's his name?
Sir Alec Guinness.
Yes.
Was it? Yeah, Alec Guinness, right? Yeah, because he's the brother of Dr. Zhivago, right? He says in 1917, I was told by the Communist Party, join the army. There was nothing to be done then. Everybody wanted to join the army. Everybody wanted to go in 1916. Sorry, the Russians came to the war late and they exited early. He says, so I joined. We were all going to go fight the Germans. We were going to have this great, everybody joined, so I joined. And I was told, it's interesting what he says, I was told by my superiors, the Bolsheviks, watch the boots. That's what he said. Watch the boots. Today they got shiny boots. Today they got new boots. When the boots are old and they've got holes in them, when the boots are worn out, and when they're starting to get foot rot, that's when you start your work. All you do is block. You know, they're shooting the Germans, telling the Germans over there, and they shoot the trees. All you do is block and interfere with what the commander is doing. And he says, remember, you join the Russian army to make sure that the Russian army loses. Because the revolution needs the failure of the army in order for the revolution to succeed. And he was one of many thousands of infiltrators who joined the Russian army, Bolsheviks, who went to the front line only to make sure they lost. And he said it wasn't hard at all. One day, for a small pack of cigarettes, something it was, I got 1,000 men. When the unrest came, he started saying, look, you know, you guys need to leave. Just go back to Russia. This has all failed. And they quit. And that was the key to the final victory of the Bolsheviks. When Tsar Nicholas sent his soldiers out to fight and they failed, that was the end of Tsar Nicholas. So likewise, the same communists that existed in 1917, guess what? They're still around. And the same communist tactics still exist in 2015, 100 years later. They still exist. What do? You send guys into the resistance. To do what? To fight the modernism of Bishop Fouillé. To fight Vatican II. And what do? You wait. Wait until there's an opportunity and you drop in a little poison. And you drop in a little more poison. And you drop in a little more poison. And then things start to fall apart. Why can't we all just get along? Now, if we're all on the same team and we're fighting, that's normal because original sin, right? But we would still be more or less fighting together, even though we have a little conflict. What do we have? There are individuals who really know what they're doing, who are, you know, Father Zendejas' letter, he's very intelligent. What does he say, for instance? He says, hermeneutic continuity is entering tradition. He brings up ideas of Cardinal Ratzinger. And he says, here's what he says Archbishop Lefebvre stood for. Archbishop Lefebvre was desiring that the union with the Vicar of Christ can be reestablished as soon as possible. So remember he was broken away from the Vicar of Christ in 1988. He died in 1991. So Archbishop Lefebvre was desiring the union with the Vicar of Christ to be reestablished as soon as possible without having to compromise at any point of doctrine, no matter what. This is what he stood for. What does that mean? Archbishop Lefebvre, after the consecration, made it his priority to get back with Rome. That's called a lie. Archbishop Lefebvre, number one, didn't need to get back with Rome because he's already a Catholic. First problem. Secondly, reuniting with Pope John Paul II and Cardinal Ratzinger, the two that he referred to. He said, if they want to reunite with me, this time, and next time, I will ask the questions. Remember that quote of Archbishop Lefebvre? Do you believe in the syllabus of errors? Do you believe in quas primas and quanta cura and so on? Do you believe in the teachings of the popes of the last 2,000 years? If you don't, it's useless to talk. That's the truth. What does he say? No matter what, he stood for reestablishing as soon as possible, as long as there's no compromise. The words of Bishop Fillet in 2012. Now, being said in smoke to us. This is very great. Very great. And there's much more. But the bottom line is, this is not the teaching of Christ. It's also not the method of Christ. It's not the way of Christ. You know what can happen, for instance, there are many good Nova Soto priests. There are many good priests in the mainstream society in St. Pius X. There are many good priests in the church who are mistaken, who are not holding the right doctrine because of the great crisis in the church, because of the fact that they're confused. Just like the Pope is confused, the bishops are confused. But if they're honest men, they will not operate like this. A good attorney of St. Peter priest will come to me and say, look, you're in disobedience. You're outside the church. And I think you are because you're not obeying the Pope. And the new Mass really isn't bad. You think it's bad, but it's not really bad. It really looks bad. So you're mistaken, at least he's being honest. He's mistaken, but honest. This is not honest behavior. This is not a case of being mistaken. This priest knows exactly what he teaches. There's no heresy in the council. Started after the council. He knows exactly what we teach, which is there is heresy in the council. He's going to pretend like he's the friends of us and lead the people quietly, deceptively, slowly away from the truth. That's not the way an honest man operates. So, what we really have going on is a fight of the faith, and there are warriors on the side of Christ, and there are warriors on the side of the devil. And they are really fighting against each other right now. We shouldn't be overly disturbed about it, because this has been going on for 6,000 years. It will continue to go on until the end of time. And it's very providential that Providence is allowing. I wasn't supposed to see this blue paper. This blue paper is only for the chosen people. The friends of Father Deo. I was never supposed to see it. But what happened was, one of our faithful was talking to Father Hugo last week and said, Father Zedeus really is against modernism. He really is against Vatican II. He said, well, I've talked to him, Father Viper talked to him, and he didn't say that, and he could never get him to be honest about it. We don't know where he stands. So we're just not recommending him and leaving him be because we don't know where he stands. Nobody's against. I can prove to you. I will send you the blue paper. Which is what she did. So we read it. Turns out it's not really against Vatican II at all. And it's written, but you hear the word Vatican II, you hear hermeneutic continuity, you hear you hear new orientation, collegiality, so you feel comforted. But what does he do? He says those words, and then he twists the meaning.
How did she respond?
Well, she didn't think there was any problem with it, right?
Even after you said there was?
Oh no, I didn't talk to her yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I just this is less than 12 days old. I was in London last week when we went with the seminarians over this house. We were 17, and I preached on it last week, last Sunday. I preached on it last Sunday and last Monday in London and in Ireland. And then the latest on comments just came out on Saturday. I don't know if the one came out yet for this weekend. It's supposed to be part 2 of this. And it'll be a repetition of what he said in New York about the new Mass. Bishop Williamson says the new Mass is not really good. New Mass is not really holy, but you can use it for good and holy. So if you feel it benefits you, you can go. Which means you can use evil for good. doctrine of religious liberty. And the man taught by the council, the man has a right to choose a wrong religion. The right to choose evil. That's obviously a perversion. It goes against the first principle of morality, which is called synderesis. First principle of all morality, complicated word, synderesis. All it means is we must do good and avoid evil. Everyone knows that. You must do good and avoid evil. Here it's saying you can do evil for the sake of good. That's destroying the first principle of all action. This is extremely wicked and demonic. And then he said that he wouldn't talk about it again. Now he's having some comments about it. It's come out again. It's going to be a series, And at the very end of this, I forgot to read. There's miracles at the new mass. I talked about the miracles of Buenos Aires. That it's a real miracle. That the host. What happened is someone went to a new mass and there was received communion in the hand. And who did you want to know? Read this? Only you read it. Okay. So what happened is in 1996 in Buenos Aires, somebody went to a new mass, received communion in the hand, dropped the host on the floor or on a candlestick somehow. Two different stories. And then a woman saw the host on the floor, told the priest about it. The priest picked up the host, and seeing it was dirty, put it in a bowl of water, put it in the tabernacle, so it would dissolve, and then Christ no longer be present. Came back the next day, opened the tabernacle, and instead of dissolving, the host became human flesh. Now then, this human flesh has been analyzed, and they claim it's the flesh of a man's heart that is under trauma, and that it was the same kind of flesh in the Lanciano miraculous host in Italy. So, miracle. What is this miracle? By the way, it's the third miracle in the same church. There was a miracle in 92, miracle in 94. This is the third one in 96, which already makes it suspect. 3 miracles in the same church when we've had so few miracles in hundreds of thousands of churches all over the world in the last 2,000 years. 3 in the same church of Buenos Aires, approved by Pope Francis. Now, which is another problem. But the thing is, so therefore it says, well, there's miracles in the new mass. So he's got the evidence. He says it's the evidence, which is not definitive, but he says it's evidence. And then, when in June, Archbishop Williamson of 1976, Archbishop Lefebvre was on the brink of ordaining the first large batch of SSPX priests, despite Rome's disapproval. A Roman official came to promise him the end of all problems with Rome if only he would celebrate one Novus Ordo Mass. On principle, for doctrinal reasons, he refused. Then how can Almighty God have worked miracles, Eucharistic miracles, with and for this new Mass? Read here next week for a suggested answer. So the answer, theoretically, the answer was given this week. And so the question is put in your head. Did Archbishop Lefebvre make a mistake in 76? When he was told, celebrate one new Mass and you have no problems? Of course he's going to say, I don't think he made a mistake. What did he do? He put the question in your head. And the question just might stay there. You see? It's like a dirty picture, right? You may not have a bad thought, but who knows what's going to happen 10 years from now when that picture comes back. It's in your head. Here, we're putting erroneous ideas in your head. And then you all forget about it, but then it comes back. It's a very powerful tool to change your thinking. Very powerful. Because you see, you won't remember Father Zendeas. He said something about Vatican II, and he said, somebody's going to say to you, the Bishop, Archbishop Lefebvre, he stood for getting back to Rome as soon as possible. You're right, I heard that. Where'd you hear that? I don't remember. But I heard that everybody knows that. And they won't remember this paper. But they heard it. And when they hear it again, it goes, yeah, you're right, I heard that before. It's a technique of mind control. This is very bad. Now, it's certainly disturbing, like you say, the division aspect of things. It's disturbing, but only to a certain extent. Remember that St. Paul said, in perils from robbers, in perils from from all manners, in perils from false brethren. This is an example of perils from false brethren. Nothing changes under the sun. Yeah?
What can we do to fight this? And what about having our own Legion of Mary, or maybe everybody in your group suggests that people give up meat on Wednesday as well? Can you give suggestions that, or come
Well,
up
you know
with
what, the principal suggestion is, I think Our
one
Lady
for
of
a common
Fatima,
cause.
which is say the rosary every day, because now it's getting harder to do that. 15 decades impossible. Right? Fulfill the duty of state and live as a Catholic in our world today, which is not so easy. And speak the truth clearly. This is something that's not being done right now. And then, of course, you know, I'm allergic to rosary crusades. People have been asking rosary crusades. Remember, I got an allergy to rosary crusades because it was the rosary crusade that was used in order to destroy the whole app, right? The rosary crusade, you know. But we have rosaries. We need to do rosary, you know. But really, this is already a blessing because remember, you know how you get rid of cockroaches? Turn on the light. And here, I'm not supposed to have seen this blue paper because I never read the internet anyway. Would never have normally seen it. But some ladies sent it to Father Hugo, who'd never seen it either. He read it to me and then he printed it out and said, "Oh my goodness, this is modernism, classical modernism." And it means that, because you know my plan, it's a divine providence. It's my plan 2 weeks ago. I know Father Zhivago is trying to cut off the Pharisees. I know he's trying to slice me and trying to cut down the work of conducting. But, was it all's fair in love and war? Is that the saying, right? Right? Okay, right. I said, well, okay, so he's doing that. I can live with that. If he's just going to minimally profess the faith. So if he wants to fight over turf, I can live with that. I'm not worried about that. Provided he minimally holds the faith. So I'm not going to worry about fighting him. You know, I'm not happy about what he's doing, but so what? I can live with that. I can live with that. And so we would say, well, just let him do what he's doing. At least he's saying Mass, hearing confessions, going around, okay. If he's going to our places instead of other places, but okay, you know, as long as he's got the faith minimum. And this is very providential. Now I know I can't do that. I have to recommend, he can still do whatever he wants, of course. I'm not going to stop him, and I can't stop him anyway. But I have to recommend to the people, he's not standing for the truth. We're not on the same side of the fence. There's a doctrinal problem. There's no point in pointing it somewhere else. It's a battle of the faith. We're fighting for the truth and fighting for the faith. And there will be casualties in the war, but the truth wins. The faith wins. And they're saying, oh, well, you know, where is your bishop? You know, how are you going to survive? Well, you know, my bishop is not my problem. I'm a priest. So you won't be judged for being a bad priest. You'll be judged for being a bad father or a bad mother. But you won't be judged for being a bad priest. Don't worry about that. You live the faith, and God will send you the priests. And my job as a priest is to live the faith as a priest, and God will send me the bishops. And I know that God will provide. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt whatsoever. There will be Catholic bishops until the end of time. And it might be Bishop Fillet that converts. It might be Pope Francis. Maybe Pope Francis will be our new bishop. You know, we can have, you know, my name is Jorge. You know, I'm going to do ordinations for you because I got saved. You know, so who knows? Pope Francis can convert. Cardinal Ratzinger can convert. St. Augustine converted. He was a pretty bad guy. Saul of Tarsus was worse. And he converted. And we know from God's actions, he doesn't just convert the worst sinners. He also takes people who are innocent from the beginning and every gamut in between. Why? To keep us guessing. He doesn't always take the worst sinners. He doesn't always take the most holy ones. He doesn't always take the guys from good families. He doesn't always take the ones from bad families. He doesn't always take the ones who were black sheep. He takes from everywhere. Because he chooses whom he wants. And we don't know the reasons of his choice. But we know that it's going to be provided for. What is being asked of us right now is persevere in the truth, persevere in the faith, have confidence in providence. And let the bullets fly where they may, but stand for the truth. What are they trying to say? You've got to change. Because you need to quiet down on certain things in order to get this man to approve of you. But we're not interested in the approval of men, but the approval of God. We can't quiet down on the truth. Can't do that. We have to stand for the truth. And in the end, we will have the victory. There's no doubt about that. So long as we stay firm in the truth, firm in the faith, and let that faith be with hope and charity. Remember, the three principles, the three go together as one principle of supernatural life. There's one principle of supernatural life, just like there's one God, which is three persons. So there's one principle, which is faith, hope, charity. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. But unless faith travels through hope and charity, you don't please God. So we have to have faith with hope and charity. Hope is total confidence. Confidence in the Blessed Virgin Mary and her victory, confidence in our Lord. And charity means we have to do the obvious works of charity. We got to bring, as a priest, I've got to bring Christ to souls. I've got to try to help souls and help the poor, etc. I've got to do that as a priest. And I've got to preach the faith, preach the truth. And if someone doesn't like it, well, okay, too bad. We have to preach the truth. We do sometimes have to, there are ways of trying to help people gently come to the truth. But remember, I've noticed myself, each priest has a different approach. I remember when Father Bebo, for instance, in Phoenix, a guy came to Mass in Albuquerque, and he had an earring, get rid of that crappy earring! And he, bam! He ripped the earring off his ear, it was bleeding, he got the point across. Not the normal thing. And one time, another guy came in, a bum came, we were always feeding the beggars. So he was feeding the beggar, and the beggar cursed, took the name of God in vain. And so Father Bebo, bam! Like, you can't hit me, you're a priest. You want to see me do it again? And then he never cursed again. Now, and then so sometimes there's a rough guy approach. Sometimes there's a nice guy approach. Sometimes there's a quiet approach. There's many ways. There could be different styles of how to approach. It was, a rough guy approach. But I noticed myself that God sends, I remember when I was a child, Father Hannafin and Father Urban. Father Hannafin was my priest in Kentucky, and Father Urban was there. Father Urban was always gentle, quiet, Trappist monk. Father Hannafin was a hot-tempered Irishman. And I remember somebody would come in, and they would meet Father Hannafin first. Another guy would come in, and he would run into Father Urban first. And I remember noticing as a child, the timid guy would come in, and he would happen to run into Father Urban first. And another guy would come in, and he would happen to run into Father Hannafin first. And they were both walking across the street. They didn't know either of them from Adam. But whichever one needed Father Hannafin happened to meet him. Whichever one needed Father Urban happened to meet him. I noticed that as a child. So God has many different priests. We're all different. We have different styles. That's fine. So long as we hold the truth and have confidence in providence. And this is now a problem that we're finding different doctrine coming out. We've got to stand with the true doctrine. We can't stand with modernism alone. I think I'll close with that. But anybody have questions, whatever. And we can try to see put together a Christmas Mass and all that. And this place has actually worked out pretty well. You see, we've done it a bunch of times now. And it's usually available normally most of the time. Do they rent it for people to stay overnight or something like that? Or?
Year round?
No, just for events